Brewmaster has been my favorite monk for some years now, and I've been playing it at a competitive level for the last few seasons. I figured it was about time to create a Brewmaster Master Class. This is going to be an 8-part series that'll be covering everything from damage to mitigation to hero talents and every little detail in between. There's also the assumption that you are playing Brewmaster at max level since this is not a leveling guide. In this video, we are going to focus on the main damage rotation and abilities and go over some of the rules to follow that will set you up for success. Let's dive in. Similar to many other classes, Brewmaster has a variety of abilities that deal damage, and as you level, you'll find that these abilities have some interesting interactions with each other. In this video, I want to talk about the core damage rotation and how you can manage your resources to aid in dealing maximum damage and staying alive. Before we talk about damage, we need to understand the Brewmaster's main resource economy: energy. Brewmaster Monk is currently the only tank that has this resource, and unlike other tanks that have a tendency to build and dump resources like Rage or Fury, Brewmasters need to balance their energy. In other words, you don't want to starve yourself by spending too much energy, or you don't want to sit capped on energy. You want to find a nice equilibrium. The Brewmaster spends energy by casting core abilities like Keg Smash and filler spells, including both Tiger Palm and Spinning Crane Kick. Then, to conserve energy, you have non-energy spending spells like Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, and Breath of Fire, to name a few. The key to having a healthy resource economy is by weaving these spells together. So, how do we do that? To start, the most important and I guess iconic spell in the Brewmaster's arsenal is Keg Smash. This should be your first spell you cast in almost all scenarios. While the tuning on the spell can vary, more often than not, this is your hardest hitting ability, especially in AoE, and is the catalyst for many of the inner machinations of the class. Enemies that are afflicted with your brew will catch fire when they're hit with your Breath of Fire ability. Naturally, once you cast Keg Smash, Breath of Fire should be your next immediate ability. Not only will this deal some solid AoE damage in a frontal cone, but will also apply a dot to all enemies who have the Keg Smash debuff applied to them. Along with that, Breath of Fire does not cost energy, so this should allow you to regain some of that spent resource on additional casts. It's been common for Brewmaster players to also play the talent Salsalabim Strength, which resets your Breath of Fire cooldown whenever you cast Keg Smash, making this a very natural rotation. So beyond casting Keg Smash and Breath of Fire, we also have things like Blackout Kick, which deals a significant amount of damage, and with talents like Shadowboxing Treads and Blackout Combo, it's very important that you keep this ability on cooldown. Last but not least, it's time for filler spells. More often than not, you're always going to want to follow Blackout Kick with a Tiger Palm cast. While Tiger Palm is considered a filler spell, there are several multipliers within the talent tree that bolster this ability when immediately following a Blackout Kick. First, we have the Facepalm modifier, which as of 11.2 causes your Tiger Palm to deal 100% more damage, along with reducing your brew cooldowns. Next, you have Counter-Strike talent, which causes your Tiger Palm and I guess Spinning Crane Kick to also deal 100% more damage after dodging an attack. Last but not least, we have Blackout Combo, which will also buff your Tiger Palm by 100%. With all of these modifiers, Tiger Palm can actually deal some pretty significant damage, and that doesn't even include the additional damage you're going to gain from hero talents. When it comes to these hero talents, alongside how these abilities also will benefit you defensively, I'm going to be saving that for different videos in the series. As a quick recap, your core damage rotation will look something like this. You Keg Smash, and then you're going to cast Breath of Fire, and then you're going to Blackout Kick, and then you're going to cast Tiger Palm. Because of these set conditions, it's very possible to use cast sequence macros to minimize the buttons you need to have on your bar. I understand that there are many people who don't agree with using these macros, but I do believe that they make the class easier to pick up for those people who are interested. Despite recommending these macros to new players, I will often find myself opting out of using them because of just minor nuances. For more information, you can actually check out the video being linked on screen where I go over these macros in detail. As for the rest of your rotation, Rising Sun Kick deals heavy single target damage, but really it doesn't offer too much to the Brewmaster. This ability will proc things like Chi Wave if you have it talented, which will deal passive single target damage every other time you cast the spell, along with healing the Brewmaster. As of 11.2, casting this ability will also grant you the buff Vivacious Vivification, which allows you to cast Vivify instantly and have a reduced energy cost. Because of these changes and these talents, casting Rising Sun Kick does have a little bit of value when it comes to self-sustain. When you have nothing left to hit, you can generally fill with things like Tiger Palm or Spinning Crane Kick, but I want to clarify the conditions on when you should do this. Spinning Crane Kick can feel like a powerful button because it has a great animation, it does area of effect damage, and it hits multiple times over its cast. But with recent tuning, this really only shines in large AoE pulls, but when you're opting to spend energy on this ability instead of Tiger Palm, you will be missing out on both priority damage and cooldown reduction. The general consensus is that Spinning Crane Kick should really ever only be used when there's more than 8 targets for pure damage, not considering hero talents. We can always consider nuance, but I believe 8 targets is generally a safe number to go off of. The other rule I would advise you to follow is never spam the button back to back. This is a rule that goes for most abilities. You will rarely ever want to cast any ability back to back. If you notice you're doing so, or you find yourself out of energy, this is probably where you're blundering. When it comes to large bursts of damage, the Brewmaster has 2 main abilities that can deal heavy area of effect damage. This includes both Chi Burst and Exploding Keg talents. While it's possible to opt out of these talents, it's mostly common for players to use these spells in the current meta. Chi Burst is a casted ability that deals damage to all enemies in front of the caster and heals surrounding allies in a similar fashion. Normally, you will want to fit this into your rotation as a filler spell. Often this will happen once enemies are grouped up and you have at least applied Keg Smash, Breath of Fire, and casted Blackout Kick. Exploding Keg can also be treated in a similar fashion, but deals heavy damage to all targets within its radius. Additionally, any damage events will deal additional fire damage during the 3-second debuff. This debuff will also cause all targets afflicted to miss their attacks on you for 3 seconds. Essentially, you can treat this as an offensive and defensive spell. Now, there are ways to amplify your damage with these spells even more through cooldowns like Weapons of Order, but I'm going to be covering that in a future video when I cover cooldowns. Before I wrap things up with the Blackout Combo usage, I do want to quickly talk about the main choice node right now here. This is Rushing Jade Wind and Special Delivery. As of now, there isn't much of a difference between the two, but sims do tend to lean towards Special Delivery because it's slightly stronger in terms of throughput and has a slightly better interaction with the 2 hero talents currently. That's not to say that this won't change in the future, but that's why most players lean into this. When you're playing Special Delivery, the key to this is to purify and cast your brews offensively. Whenever you cast Purifying Brew, Celestial Brew, the new Celestial Infusion, or even abilities like Black Ox Brew and Fortifying Brew, you'll be dealing AoE damage after a few seconds and slowing targets. When you're playing Rushing Jade Wind, on the other hand, you're going to want to cast this ability whenever you normally would cast a filler spell like Tiger Palm or Spinning Crane Kick. The main objective of this is to maintain 100% uptime. This ability actually makes the rotation fairly consistent. You'll want to pre-pull by casting Rushing Jade Wind, then you'll go into a Keg Smash Breath of Fire, followed by a Blackout Kick Tiger Palm, then naturally Rushing Jade Wind will be available again. This buff does last about 8 seconds, but it's also affected by a nice little mechanic called Pandemic. This is when a debuff or buff are extended up to a new maximum duration. This does get applied to Rushing Jade Wind, so it will eventually cap at a 10-second duration, which eventually gives you a little bit of breathing room to cast additional abilities like Celestial Brew or offensive cooldowns like Chi Burst without losing uptime. The last rotational topic I do want to cover though in this video is Blackout Combo. I've mentioned this already in conjunction with Tiger Palm, but as players get more comfortable with their abilities and the content they are dealing with, intermediate Brewmaster players can use this buff to either increase their damage, lower their cooldowns, or decrease the damage they take. In most cases, Tiger Palm will be the best answer, but when you do have roughly 9 or more targets, it is possible to get more damage from Breath of Fire instead. Additionally, targets afflicted by Breath of Fire after Blackout Combo will deal less damage to you, up to a total of 10%. Keg Smash can also be used instead to lower the cooldown on your brews by an additional 2 seconds. This should be taken into account when attempting to line up Celestial Brew for specific damage instances, or you find that you need additional Purifying Brews during heavy pulls. Lastly, you can use this buff on Celestial Brew or the newly introduced Celestial Infusion talent to increase the effectiveness of these absorbs. I am going to cover this in a future video, but I did want to share these options with you. This should just about cover what your core damage rotation should look like, so just a quick recap. Keg Smash is the pillar of your entire kit. This should take priority in almost all scenarios. Generally speaking, you can always follow this with Breath of Fire. Following that, Blackout Kick should always be cast on cooldown and should almost always be followed by a Tiger Palm for maximum damage. Try to use Rising Sun Kick, Chi Burst, and Exploding Keg as they become available and while these main 4 abilities are on cooldown. Avoid hitting any filler spells back to back, as this is an easy way to create an energy deficit which can cause further problems later in a pull or an encounter. And that just about sums it up. I hope you found this information useful and that it gets you off on the right foot on your Brewmaster journey. This is an 8-part series where I'm going to be covering everything about Brewmaster. In the next video, we are going to be going over Brewmaster's Stagger mechanic and unpacking every little interaction it has. Patreon supporters will have early access to this, and it's ad-free over on that platform, but all videos will eventually be available on YouTube. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.